The sky had been a bruised purple all afternoon, the kind of heavy atmosphere that makes the hair on your arms stand up. Dad was stuck 3 towns over. The highway was flooded, and he'd called to say he wouldn't be back until morning. It was just me and Elena, my stepmother of 3 years. Our relationship had always been a polite dance of boundaries. She was only 10 years older than me, a detail that always felt like an invisible wall between us. I was in the kitchen fixing a sandwich when the first crack of thunder hit. It wasn't just a sound, it was a vibration that shook the plates in the cabinets. Then, the hum of the refrigerator died. The lights flickered once, twice, and then vanished. Total, suffocating darkness. I stood there, heart hammering, until I heard her voice from the living room. "Leo? Are you there?" It wasn't her usual confident tone. It was small, fragile. I grabbed a flashlight and headed toward her, the beam cutting through the shadows like a blade. Dear listeners, before I began telling this complicated story of my life, I ask you to support my channel, subscribe, leave a like, and write the comment which city you are listening from. This is very important for us. And now, enjoy listening. I found her huddled on the sofa, a blanket pulled up to her chin. The living room felt different in the dark, larger, yet more intimate. I lit a few candles, their orange flames dancing in the draft from the hallway. We sat there for a long time, just listening to the rain lash against the windows. The conversation started small talk about the house, the storm, but without the distraction of our phones or the TV. The silence between our words became heavy with everything we never said. "Do you ever feel like this house is too big for just 3 people?" she asked, her eyes reflecting the candle flame. She moved closer to me, seeking the warmth of another person. I could smell her perfume, vanilla, and something spicy, and the scent seemed to fill the small space between us. She confessed that she often felt like a guest in her own life, waiting for a moment where she didn't have to play the role of the perfect wife. I realized then that she wasn't just scared of the storm, she was scared of the quiet, of the thoughts that came when the world turned off. The thunder roared again, closer this time, and the house groaned under the wind. Elena gasped and reached out, her hand finding mine in the dim light. Her skin was electric. She didn't let go. Instead, she leaned her head on my shoulder, and I felt the walls we'd built for 3 years begin to crumble. "I've spent so long trying to be what your father wants," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rain. "But tonight, I just want to feel real." She turned her face toward mine, and the air in the room seemed to disappear. The thumbnail moment happened when she reached up and blew out the candles, leaving us in the velvet blackness. "No one is coming home tonight, Leo," she murmured. Her hands moved to the back of my neck, pulling me down into the gravity of a secret we both knew we'd been keeping. The forbidden nature of it wasn't a barrier anymore. It was the fuel. In the dark, without the judgment of the world. She wasn't my stepmother, and I wasn't her stepson. We were just 2 people lost in a storm, finding the only shelter we had left. Phase Y. The aftermath and the gray P. Why? The hours that followed were a blur of shadows and heat. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. The language of the night was different from the language of the day. When the rain finally slowed to a drizzle and the first hint of gray light began to touch the edges of the curtains, we were still there, tangled in the blankets on the sofa. The power came back on with a sudden, violent surge. The kitchen clock began to beep, and the hum of the house returned, cold and mechanical. We jumped apart, the reality of the morning hitting us like a physical weight. Elena stood up, smoothing her hair. her face returning to that polished, distant mask I knew so well. "Your father will be home in an hour," she said, her voice steady but her eyes avoiding mine. I watched her walk up the stairs, the perfect stepmother once again. But as I sat in the silent living room, watching the sun rise, I knew that the storm hadn't ended. It had just moved inside. We would have breakfast. We would talk about the weather. And we would never speak of the night the lights went out. But every time the clouds gathered, we would both be waiting for the dark of you. Will want. What more? Videos like this. Please subscribe my channel and leave a comment about story.